G'day everyone. Thought I'd pop in just before New Year Eve. I've got a special person that's just going to say hi to everyone if you wanted to see. I'm just waiting for a few more people to pop on. So if you are watching a little bit later on, just skip until you see this pre-show disappear. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes before we start the actual show in full. I've got stacks to talk to you about today. It's been a couple of weeks actually since I've been on with the live broadcast because I missed last week. So say hi if you can in the chat. I'd love to see who's actually here from around the world, so just say hi. And apart from that, we'll get started in just a few minutes. I'm just going to allow enough people to actually log on.
Happy New Year from Australia.
Here's my lovely wife, Kerry. You'll see her in shoots all the time, so she's popping in.
I'm working out in the garden, so...
So say hi to Kerry, everyone.
Hi.
It's nice that she could actually pop in. I said, please pop out and say hi to everyone. I've got my usual Corona. I'm only going to have one, obviously, because we'll obviously have a few tonight. Remember, it's New Year's Eve here in Australia, so we're all going to have a big drinking binge tonight. I'm not sure where I might go. I might actually just go to one of the local pubs and have a Guinness. I love Guinness too, so I may do that for the afternoon and the evening. So they usually have live bands playing and stuff like that, so I'll probably do that as well. But cheers anyway. I've got some lime actually in this for a change, but yeah, cheers. So please say hi in the chat. We've got a couple now starting to come in. I'm Brown's here saying hello. Robert's here. Studio Vienna's here as well. BMCP, hi guys from Canada, minus 30. Woo. It's not too hot today. It's 25 Celsius here today, so it's almost the opposite to you. But I notice on Saturday they're predicting that we're going to have 40 plus Celsius here, so it's going to be very hot. Tony just said, ask your wife if I'm as handsome as you. She's just disappeared. She's gone back out. I can't get her to stay on this. She's really reluctant to appear live. So, but I was lucky that she actually came and said that to everyone. She hates being on the camera. So what I'm going to do anyway, I'm just going to switch over to the OSL images because people can skip that part if they don't want to watch that. So let me just bring up the logo and then we'll start with the show, guys. Good afternoon from down under, everyone, and Happy New Year to everyone. I wanted to wish everyone a Happy New Year today because remember, here in Australia, we're in the future, and it's actually New Year's Eve today, so we're going to have a big night of celebration tonight. Like I just said a few minutes ago in my thing, I'm already starting. I'm already on the Coronas. And also, I'll probably be drinking Guinness later on today too. I think I'm going to go to the Locust. We have an Irish pub here in Bacchus Marsh, and it has Guinness on tap, so I love it. So I think I might have a few of those, and I'll be thinking about you guys. So obviously all fireworks are on and everything tonight as well. We have local bands playing, so I'm really looking forward to it. So I just did want to wish you all a Happy New Year. You just saw if you were here a little bit earlier that my wife reluctantly came in and said Happy New Year to everyone, so I was rapt about that. I've got some interesting things to talk to you about. I didn't actually come on for a live show last week because being Christmas, it was just too hard to get on. But I thought I'd pop on Friday. I mean, so I thought I'd just pop in today and give you a bit of a live show before New Year. It's Sunday. Oh, it's Sunday here, yeah. So it'll be Saturday for most of you people in the US and Europe. But yeah, just wanted to wish everyone a Happy New Year. So we've got Tony's here. Also Robert is from Georgia. We've got Studio 96 is here. BMCP's here from Canada. We just said it's minus 30. That's cold. What else have we got? Vic's here as well, from Canada as well, and Terry J Photography. Happy New Year, he said, from the US, and thank you for a great year of videos live chat. That's my pleasure, Terry. I love popping on with you guys live. So what I want to talk to you about, some nice rumours that I've just read about over the last coming days. So let's get started with that. Let me just drag this chat down so I can see it down here. And I thought I'd start off with this because this is a really interesting rumour that I just read this morning, actually. So I thought, whoa, where did that one come from? They're talking about a new a6700 in 218. Now, this rumour, which is really interesting, is I think it came, if I read it, from, was it Italy or somewhere? Let me just come down here where it actually said it. I'll show you the source in a minute where it actually came from. It's an Italian photography site, but it's a serious site, it said. And this person said that they reported it out of curiosity. Now, what they're saying here is that they're saying that the Sony Rumours in 2018 is that they're going to have an a6700. Now, the specs are really interesting, what they're actually saying is going to be actually announced. So they're saying here that the design will follow that of the a6500, but with a new 24-megapixel APS-C sensor and a processor that will solve the problems of overheating. The new mirrorless will offer a wide 16-stop dynamic range and 15 frames per second burst rate with 16-bit raw file saving. They're also saying down here, and I'd love to know what you think about this in the chat too, guys, but they're also saying as well that big improvements will affect the autofocus system and the video. And they're also saying in here, and this is the interesting part, that with 4K format at 60 frames per second, I don't know if they can offer this in an a6700. Look, I'm hoping that it does happen, but it's certainly an interesting rumour saying that they're going to offer it with 4K 60 frames per second. The current a6500 has great problems with the autonomy, with the 3.810 viewfinder shots. I'm not sure what that means. It's just saying, obviously in the translation, logical, therefore expect improvements on the front of in the battery life, I think they're saying there. So what they're saying is, let's look at what they're saying the specs are. So they're saying better AF, like accuracy and sensitivity, 1/8000th of a shutter speed. So that's, I think it's limited at the moment to 4,000th, isn't it? Faster burst, that would be obviously. Flash sync of 1/250th, so that's improved as well. Improved electronic shutter and better stabilization. 2 memory card slots with UHS-2 support. Raw processing in the car. I don't know what that means. It must mean in the actual body itself. Double exposure Wi-Fi connectivity. Greater speed and startup. Greater reactivity. Obviously, this has just been the way it's translated. An adjustable touchscreen monitor. Now, I'm not sure. What do you guys reckon? Do you think that this is even possible that they could offer this much in an a6700? Because what would it offer in the a7RIII? Because if they're saying like they're going to offer 4K, 1/8000th shutter speed, 2/50th of a second in flashing sync speed, a better electronic shutter and better stabilizer, the only thing that really, what could they offer more in the a7RIII? I suppose it's full frame, so that will obviously be a better thing. It'll be better low light. But still, if this is true, this would be an incredible camera. Now, just to show you too, I'll just open up the site so you can see the actual site that this came from. It's obviously it's a Italian rumour site, so it'd obviously be all in Italian language here, so it's translated from that. So this is the site anyway where it's actually come from, this rumour. So it's a really interesting one. So let me know in the chat what you think about that. Now I will leave time for chats later on, guys, so if you can just put @DavidOsler if you definitely want me to see it, because that's an easy way for me to see the chat, because I will come back over with you with all this chat later on. So just say @DavidOsler. That's one advantage of coming on live. If you're not here live, just leave that down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can later on. Or you can obviously join our Facebook group as well. Would be a great thing too. But yeah, so let's go back to this site. So yeah, I mean, the interesting thing for me, especially because I'm doing more and more fusion now with video and stills at the same time, the 4K 60p would be incredible. Like I've said to you before, they can give me that just lasts 4 minutes and I'll be happy, because most of the time I'm only shooting for 15 to 20 seconds. So if they can give me 4K 60p for shooting a bride walking down an aisle or something like that, that would be fantastic. Because the way that I'm shooting at the moment, I do have a GH5, but I'm using the GH5 for more of the static type shots, not where there's too much movement, because the autofocus is just not strong enough on that camera. So I'm not using it for, say, on a gimbal or for the bride walking down the center aisle. That's where I'm using the a6500 or the a6300, because it has got such great autofocus. Now, if they can give me an a6700 that has those type of features, well, that's just going to be amazing. it could be a reason why I would sell perhaps my GH5. I'll just have to see what's Sony release coming up in the future with the a7S III or this a6700. May change the way that I actually shoot, and I may be able to then get rid of the GH5s perhaps, but I'll have to wait and see what's happened when this is released or when it's released. I mean, I used the GH5 on the weekend. It was very hot here in Melbourne when I did the wedding. I think it was around about 35, 36 degrees Celsius, which is, you know, getting close to 100 in Fahrenheit. And I left the GH5 obviously to get things like the ceremony and stuff like that where I just could leave it running and I wasn't worried about it overheating. So that is still a real great benefit of using that camera, for instance. But if they do get that where they overcome that with these new cameras, like I said, it probably will mean that I could get rid of my GH5. But we'll talk about that too a little bit later on. But let me know what you think about these specs. The 1/8000th of a shutter is also a great feature if they give you that. I mean, that would be incredible considering at the moment it's linked to 1/4000th. And that can cause issues if you're trying to overpower the sun. So to give you that feature in this type of body would be fantastic. Even the flash sync speed is 1/250th. I think at the moment it might be 1/200th. I'm not sure. Or it may even be 1/60th. Someone may let me know in the chat what it is. I'm using mine up here, so I can't tell you what the flash sync speed is. So let me know in the chat, guys, if any of you know what the current flash sync speed is of the a6500, because I'd love you to talk about that a little bit later on. Improved electronic shutter. So in other words, they're trying to get rid of that rolling shutter that's there. They have improved it an awful lot in the a7RIII and definitely in the A9. The A9 rolling shutter is way better than what I'm getting in my a6500. So if they can give me a similar thing in an a6700, that would be just incredible. Also, better stabilizer. I mean, that's one area where the GH5 at the moment is way better than anything I've got in Sony. The stabilization in that camera is particularly good. So if they can improve that, that would be really good as well. And they may be able to make it better than what they're dealing with the full frames, because you're not dealing with such movement with that sensor being a smaller sensor. So if they can improve that, that would be really good as well, because I really do like now shooting a lot of the time without using anything, just hand holding with the GH5. I can't really do that with my Sony gear very well, but I can with the GH5. So if they can give me that with the Sony cameras, that would be another really good thing too. But yeah, so let me know what you think about it anyway. So that's the first story. Second story is that Sony are rumoured to finally launch a new 16 to 55 f2.8 APS-C E-mount lens in 218. Now, I think this would be a really good all-around lens. Let me know what you guys think. I haven't got the 16 to 55 at the moment. I think it's an f4, isn't it? I haven't got that lens, but let me know whether you think that is a really worthwhile lens to carry around. But if you're dealing with a 2.8 version of that lens, that may be a lens that I'm actually interested in. It could be a great travel lens, for instance, or it could be great in weddings and things like that if you're videoing, and also on a gimbal, it could be a really nice lens as well. At the moment on the gimbal, I'm basically using the 10 to 18 millimeter f4, and I'm also using the 18 to 105 when I'm dealing with the gimbal at the moment. So this could give me basically a bit of a faster lens, which will be really nice for wedding receptions and things like that. And I'm going to show you actually a wedding reception that I just did this weekend, so I'll just talk about that with my A9 usage shortly. But that could be a really nice lens to stick on a gimbal. But let me know what you think about that as well. But I think that could be great. So they're rumoured sometime in 2018. It just says here that this info comes from a source whom shared a couple of correct rumours in the past, but was also wrong with the a7S III rumour he shared in September. So obviously he's been wrong before as well. So it just says, so this means we may have to take it with a grain of salt, but I certainly hope that this is on the right track with reliable rumours. They're also saying that the lens coming up, obviously the 400 2.8 FE, well, that's going to be way out of the range of most photographers, unless you're really dealing with high-end sports, because that, I think that probably will be about $13,000, that lens. So it's clearly going to be a really expensive lens. And he's also saying the 16 to 55 and the 135F, they're not sure yet what version that's going to be, the FE part. And they're also saying the rumours still are that there's going to be an A5000 camera released, A7S3. I'll just scroll this down a little bit so you can see this. A7S3 and a7RIII obviously is still to come. And Samyang lens 135, probably 2.8, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. But do you think that's going to be a nice lens? That, you know, I mean, this is obviously just a mock-up, but I mean, it may be something that, like I said, I'd be interested in getting. It certainly would be a great gimbal lens, because it would give me that ability to shoot, like I said, receptions and lower the ISO a little bit, because at the moment I'm using f4 lenses. So let me know what you think about that too. Next story. Now this is really interesting because remember a little while back I was talking about how Nikon, Sony have been saying they were outselling Nikon. Well, this next story goes above that, and you start to sort of see that what they were saying was actually the truth. And so more and more stories are coming out how that Sony are now basically in front of Nikon, and they're really starting to catch up to Canon, and Canon users certainly won't like that. So let's have a look at that story, because this is Lens Rentals, and they're basically saying here that Canon and Sony dominate Lens Rentals' most rented gear of 2017 list. And what they're saying in here is that, and this is the really interesting part, that and you can click on this. I'll leave these links down below, so you will be able to go to these links and have a read for yourself. But basically what they're saying is that it's very interesting. You can check out the full list here, and like I said, I'll leave this link below. And it's saying Sony's claim that it has beaten Nikon to take #2 position in sales of full-frame interchange lens cameras is backed up by the rental data. According to Lens Rentals, for the first year ever, Sony has outrented Nikon and is slowly closing the gap to Canon. So this is really interesting when you're starting to read this sort of information. It's also saying in here that, that said, Sony's top renting piece of gear, the Sony a7S II, only reached the #5 spot behind 4 Canon products. So they're talking about the Canon lenses and stuff here that's still way up. But like I said, they're slowly starting to catch up. Canon may have not released anything overly exciting this year, but there's no doubt it's still the best-selling camera brand in the world at this stage. Finally, the last bit that caught our eye is that the battery, Sony's MP-FW50, which was recently replaced by that NP-FZ100 that our own Richard Butler loves so much, took the #6 spot, beating out some seriously popular gear like the Canon 50-1.2 and the Canon 60D. So the battery is actually being rented an awful lot. Now that may also be because they were hard to get initially, but it's really interesting to see that the battery is being rented more than this other gear as well. Anyway, so you can read all of this related gear and check out how it's actually done. But it does prove a point that Nikon really is in trouble. And I mentioned this before, that even though, you know, the D850 is selling really well and everything like that, it's still being outgunned, I think, by Sony, and Nikon have probably left a little bit late to move over to mirrorless. It might change a little bit if they do move quickly, but they're going to have to move quick, because Sony obviously is also looking at, you know, getting new gear released shortly as well. I'm just seeing if anyone mentioned what that sync speed was. No, not yet. All right, so that's that. So I thought that was a really interesting story. And again, like I said, I'll leave that in the description down below. Another really interesting rumour is that Samyang teases a new lens launch. Could it be the 135 FE or a new FE zoom? So what they're saying is here that there's teasing, it's this coming up soon, Samyang, and they're saying that the rumours are that it's a 135 FE. They're not saying what the zoom, the f-stop is yet, but I think it probably will be something like an f2 or an f2.8, but it'll be interesting to see what this is, and that will be interesting to see if it's a great lens, how that affects, say, the Batis 135, which is still way too expensive for what it actually is offering. I mean, I love the 135 focal length, so eventually I may get one of these lenses, because as you know, I just adore shooting primes, and the 135 is gorgeous. But I've been waiting for a native autofocusing E-mount version, and even though I love my Batis 85, I think that the 2.8 version of the 135 from Batis is too expensive. I just don't want to spend that sort of money on that lens at a 2.8. So I'm going to wait and see what is offered in the future, whether I'd get that one or whether eventually I may get the Sony one that's released as well. I'm just going to buy my time and wait and see what I've got. Like you guys mostly know, I've been mostly shooting the 35 1.4 Sony lens and also the Zeiss Batis 85. They're my two favourite lenses, and I shoot 90% of my weddings with that lens combo. So that, anyway, that's rumours about that coming. So that's really interesting. Another really interesting lens here that I wouldn't mind to have a look at is the Laowa 15mm f2. This would be a beautiful lens too. I don't mind manual focusing these lenses, especially if they have beautiful gearing on them, which these manual focus lenses do. Like I said, I love using the Voigtlander on the GH5, and this probably would be similar quality, so I'd love to have a try of it one time. Let me know too in the chat if anyone has used that lens, because I'd be really curious to know if any of you have actually used it yet, but I may get a chance to actually use that. Someone contacted me the other day about going out and trying the 100 to 400 f4 lens. I think we're going to organise a shoot next week with a model so that I can review it for you guys. So hopefully I'll be doing that sometime next week, I think, at this stage. But yeah, that's an interesting lens. And if you're into using, obviously, manual focus lenses, this could be gorgeous. So let me know if anyone's using it anyway. I'd be interested to know. Another thing too, if you have been chasing the a7RIII, it's in stock at Amazon and B&H and Adorama at the moment. Cheers. So that's available in stock, and I did check. I think Amazon only had 2 left. B&H didn't say. They just said it had it in stock, and it was available for shipping immediately. So if you are chasing one of those cameras, you don't have to wait any longer. You can buy them now straight from the shops, which is a great thing if you're looking at getting one. So perhaps they're catching up with all the shortages now. Also, on that, Matt Granger has just put out I don't know whether you like Matt Granger or not. The angry photographer doesn't like him. He's a fellow Aussie. I quite like him. I think he gives some interesting reviews. The a7RIII, he's got a review on that too, and he's actually called it his camera of the year. And also, I think Engadget has also called it its camera of the year as well. And you can watch these reviews if you want to. Like I said, I'll leave links in the description box down below, so you can watch that as well if you want to. But there's some good reviews there that you can actually check it. Also, Sony Alpha have put on camera settings for street photography for the Sony a7RIII and also the A9. I think it's a review on what settings to use and things like that. So there's some interesting posts that I found that you can actually find there to use, which are pretty good too. Another interview here, this is the last one with news before I want to discuss how the A9 went on the weekend. Another one here was this interview with the Sony GM lens series developers. So this was an interview with the actual developers of the G series lenses, and they're saying in here that this interview, basically they're saying down here there will be no 35mm 1.4 or 50 1.4 GM version. And really, they don't need them. And that's what they're saying here, at least not for the next 2 years, because Zeiss lenses are very new and it makes no sense to overlap the specs. So, I mean, like I said, I adore my 35 1.4 lens. I absolutely love it. And I use that basically all the time. So I wouldn't be buying a GM version of that either, not unless it broke, and then I suppose if something happened to it, I could get a GM version. But they're saying that there'll be nothing released over the next 2 years. But they are saying Sony is working busily on making new GM lenses, and the roadmap is based on customers' needs. Hint, there might be a wide-angle GM lens. So perhaps they're going to release a nice wide-angle one, which could be. That might be one that I'd be interested in getting. Like I said, I love primes. So if they could give me a wide-angle GM lens, that might be something that I'd be really interested in, 1.4 or 1.2 or something like that. Nice wide-angle would be fantastic. They're lastly saying, my bet is that 2018 we will see a wide-angle GM prime lens and a 135 FE 1.8. So that's really interesting. 135 f1.8 is going to be a big lens, though, and that's probably going to be pretty expensive. It'll be interesting to see where they're priced on that. Have a guess in the chat, guys. I'd love to see what you guys think a 135 f1.8 lens would cost, and whether you guys think you'd be interested in getting something like that. Like I said, I think the 400 2.8 is probably going to be around $13,000, so that's going to be pretty expensive, that lens. So I'm not sure whether most people are going to be able to afford that unless you're like I said, into serious sports or wildlife. Apart from that, there wouldn't be many people buying that lens. But at least they're offering it, so people can't say that Sony don't have lenses anymore. They haven't been able to say that for ages. They still do, but it's fake. So that's all of that. Now I'm going to switch over because I just wanted to talk to you about how the A9 went on the weekend. I'm still so in love with that camera, guys. I can't tell you how much I adore that camera. Here it is sitting next to me. I take this to bed with me. I put it under the blankets between me and Kerry. I can just cuddle into it. I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. And it's got my favourite lens on there, 35 1.4. Just adore it. But it's just amazing. Like I said, I shot the whole wedding that I did on Saturday. Actually, it was a Thursday wedding I did this time, which was unusual for me. But it was a Thursday wedding. I only used one battery for the whole day. I started at, I think it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and I finished at 9:30 that night. I think I took around about 950 photos. I used one battery. I didn't change the battery for the whole day. It's just incredible. I bought 4 batteries for that when I bought it, which is crazy now when I think about it. I did buy 4 batteries for it, and I laugh now thinking about it. But I suppose if I get a new a7S3 or the new cameras that come out, they'll all have the same battery, I think. So I'll be able to share it. But I laugh when I think of how many batteries I actually paid and bought for that thing. I didn't use the grip this time. I thought I'd just try it for the grip because I was doing fusion on this wedding, so I had to carry 2 cameras, and I'm holding a gimbal. And I'll show you a photo in a minute because I want to show you actually how I do it. Yeah, I'm holding one camera in one hand and another camera in the other and just shooting away. But that's why I didn't want to use the grip because it gets too much weight to carry the 2 cameras. But, I used it all day. Focus was just incredible. I mean, it was a dim lit reception and it just never let me down. Like having the days now where I used to use my a7RIIs where it used to struggle for focus, it just doesn't have that issue anymore, and it's grabbing faces, and I can grab the eye in dark conditions. I mean, sometimes the say camera do not change the way you shoot, but this camera has changed the way I shoot. It has made my life easier. I mean, it hasn't made the shots any better, but it certainly has made my life easier to shoot in challenging conditions, and it never misses a beat. I don't have to worry about batteries. I don't have to worry about overheating. I don't have to worry about anything with it, and I just adore it. It's got the dual card slots. And obviously, if you have the Sony a7RIII, you're in the same boat. So, it's fantastic. But let me just switch over because I'm just going to bring this up because I wanted to show you a couple of things with this. I just wanted to show you this because I always talk about how I'm shooting and stuff like that, doing fusion. And Kerry, luckily, she was second shooting for me on the day here. And she's grabbed this one of me behind the scenes here, just shooting. And I was doing a video actually here, and I'll show you that when you see some video soon because you'll see the fusion part of this. It's just on a little slider that I'll move back and forth. I'll take you through all this so you'll be able to see it shortly how it's actually going. But this is the GH5 though, obviously not the Sony camera. You can see I've got an onboard mic so I can get things happening. But I just wanted to show you that, sort of it's a nice behind the scenes shot. Now, talking about the A9, you can see here that I've basically shot this with my favourite lens, which was the 85 Batis. Now it's chopped off a little bit at the top. Let me just make this a bit smaller. Now these are unedited, guys, so they haven't had any editing done at all, so they're straight out of camera. Like I've always said to you guys, I never hide anything from you guys. These are going to look stunning once I edit them. This was shot at 1.8. It was 1/25th of a second at ISO 400, and it was lit with ice lights. Now, you saw that video that I showed recently with ice lights. You would swear looking at this that this was just natural window light coming in from the side. This was a fairly dim room, and it was lit from the side just with ice lights. And I use these extensively when I'm inside doing bride prep and things like that. Sometimes I find the flash can be a little bit hard, so I like to use like an ice light or something like that. I very rarely use on-camera flash now when I'm doing this type of work. You can also see here for this second shot that, again, I've just balanced for the ambient light. And this is the beauty of being able to use this type of, image, is that it's just, I mean, it's nail focus on there. You can see the detail too in the face. But basically, I've exposed for the ambient, which I get that beautiful light that's in the background. And then basically what I'll do is I'll bring the ice light in over the other side. And to show you what I'm sort of looking at here, where is my, where are we? Oh, here we go. I'll just launch this so you can see where it was. All it is Kerry was holding an ice light just off this position here. And you can see that it's given that fill, that lovely fill that's it's given on her face. So it's given that lovely fill there that, is beautiful. And you'd swear that it's window light that's actually coming in. That's where I adore those lights so much. And like I said, I'm not sponsored by Westcott ice lights at all. I've just bought 3 of them. But I adore them and I really love them. I also have 2 Neo Roto lights. But the Roto lights I find are harder. They're not as soft as what the ice lights are because the ice light is much longer. It's very diffused and it gives a much softer light. Like I said, it's very much like window light. But I adore that. I always make sure I turn the light on in the background. This was on auto white balance and it's just nailed it. Like I said, the Sony A9 color science is incredible. And I wanted to just take you through these. Now remember too, these are completely all unedited. I haven't done any editing on these images at all. I just wanted to show you this too because these images, let me just come back to here for a second. These images, I just wanted to show you how I've used the Roto light here. If I come back to this image, you'll see here that where I'm placing them. I've got one there and one there on light stands. You can see the light stands are there and there's one also behind here. So you can see those and where they actually are. Now, the thing that I'm actually doing is I'm actually starting to use less and less flash in these dark conditions. Now, there's a reason why I do that. Because I'm shooting Fusion, I'm the one responsible for doing the video and also the stills at the same time. So I don't want flashes going off while I'm shooting the video because I want to be able to use whatever I can from the video. So I'm using continuous light in this case, and that's all I'm doing. So I'm using the ambient light to light up the bride and the groom in this situation, which also allows the ambient lighting in, and I'm not having a flash go off during the filming that I'm running, which can be annoying if you're trying to shoot video. So you can see here that it's giving a little bit of fill off that background. Now, because those lights were basically behind them, right behind them, that when I'm shooting back, and I'm walking around, I'll show you how I was in a minute, but you'll see here that it's given that nice bit of separation, through this. And this is all lit up with ice lights, with the Neo Roto lights. Now, it is harder. It is definitely harder than what I was showing you in this type of lighting scenario. And you can see the different, oh, hang on, I've got to come back. I'll just come back and show you where it was. Here you can see the fill is giving them separation just from those, the Neo Roto lights that were behind them in this location behind them here. You can see the 2 of them right there and there. So it does give them that separation in the background. Now, the great thing for this is that it also makes it okay for video. Now, remember, I'm just sitting there holding both cameras in 2 hands. I've got a gimbal in this hand and another camera in this hand, and I'm just walking around. Now, I think I had... Did I get an image of that? Oh, well, you can sort of see. Let me just see if I can... I'm out of focus on the background here because this was shot. But I'll show you. You can see that I've got my still camera here, the A9, and down here I've got the A7R... the A7S. I've got the a6500 here, and I've got one hand there, and I'm holding both at the same time. Let me just reduce that down again. So you can see me in that background there actually being shot. Kerry shot me from the other angle so you can see where I'm actually working from there. And that's how I'm doing it. So this hand here is holding the gimbal. That hand there, I've just got up to my face and I'm just grabbing off still shots at the same time. And like I said, it just gives me lovely separation. Now, I'm quite comfortable just ramping up the ISO on these images. You know, I'm not worried about that at all on the ISO. What is the ISO on these? It's ISO 800. So it was ISO 800 on these images, so I don't mind upping the ISO. Now remember, I wanted to sort of try and keep it usable so I could also use the GH5 as well. And that way I haven't got the flashes going off. I'm just using ambient light. I don't have to worry about strobes going off like crazy. So I'm shooting more and more of these images just by using the natural lighting that's actually going off. Again, it was done through here as well. You can see that I'm actually just running around here doing smoke actually at this stage, just getting a bit of smoke around them. This was one of the images that was taken from that. That was another image that was taken with that. And you can see I've just used natural backlighting this time. It was a street light that was coming through. So again, I'm not using any flash here at all. This was all just total ambient. And it seems to be more and more the way that I'm going is to be able to use that type of thing because I'm shooting video at the same time. Actually, that's what I was doing here. I had the gimbal and I was actually running around with the gimbal. I had the smoke behind them there actually, so I just had a gimbal here that I was actually using. So yes, I just wanted to show you that, and that was, like I said, the image that we got out of it for that. So let's go over to questions anyway, because I want to go to questions for you guys. And I'll bring this up. So let's clear this. All right, so I'm going to scroll back and I want to answer any questions for you guys. So initially, most people are just saying hi. So throw some questions at me now, guys, if you want to know anything. Most people are just saying hi and how cold it is in Canada. It's ridiculous how cold it is. I'm Brown said you can skip the a7RIII if they offer this. And that's why I don't know whether they will, Tony. And you're saying I think the a6700 would have dual card slots and the a7RIII will. Are you saying the a6700 won't have them? Is that what you're saying? I don't know those rumours we were looking at before with the a6700, whether they can offer all that, because if they do offer all of that, I really don't know why you'd want the a7RIII, but let's see what happens. Roy's just saying, hi Roy, nice to have you in here. No, I haven't heard. He said, have I heard an update about the a7? Is that the a7RIII? No, not yet. It will come though. It'll be sometime next year. David Johnson said, the only issue I would see is having an APS-C camera in that price range for a full frame camera. That might be an issue. I'd still buy it, David, to be honest. If they offered that at a similar price with all of those features in it, I'd probably still buy it because I love the size and the form factor of the a6700. It'd be interesting to see if they keep that the same. Like I said, I reckon that's the best gimbal camera that's out there. And I'd just love 4K 60p on that. That would be unbelievable if I could get that. Gerald said, Happy New Year down under, David. Thank you so much, Gerald. Same to you. You get it before us in these States. Yes, I do. It's tonight. Woohoo! Cheers. Oh, Jeff, yeah. So Jeff said the flash is 1/60th, yeah. So if they do give you, I have found that's an issue sometimes. If you're trying to overpower the sun and do different things, the 1/60th of limitation can be a problem. The same as the 400th of a second can be a problem as well. So if they give us 250th of a second and 8,000th, that's a big jump. So I really would love that to actually happen. Some are saying the sound's perfect too. It's weird. Who needs an expensive 135 1.8? Just got me a Laowa 105mm f2. That'd be beautiful too. Yeah, I bet it has blown you away, Mike. Do you think they'll up the megapixels on the A7S? Yes, I think it'll be 18. That's my guess, because that has to be that perfect size. They can't go much above that, or they're not going to have the improvements in the noise. So I do think, Troy, it is probably going to be around about the 18 megapixels in file size. So I've got a feeling that's probably what it's going to be around. Was that the small Rode mic on your Panasonic camera? Yes, and I love that. It works fantastic on both the Sony and the GH5. It's the Sony Micro, is it? I can't remember the actual name of that one. So it's that one, which is, if I take that off, yeah, it's this little one. I love it. It's fantastic. Tiny, just plugs in, no powers required. It's just brilliant. Just put the sock on, and that's all I need, and it works fantastic. I will take you through all of that stuff eventually, how I do it all, and I don't use that camera usually for on board. It's just there so I can sync the audio to it later on in Pluralize or in Final Cut, and I will show that how I do that system. But that's the one I use on the cameras, and it works fantastic. You said I have it too. Yes, it's the Micro. Yeah, it's fantastic. When you use the Sony A9, do you use flexible spot for your focusing mode for your weddings? No, just mostly wide area, David. I'm just using wide area. I'll just tell you exact settings that I use. So focusing is on wide area, and because then I can use all my face detect, obviously, and I've programmed the C1 button here to do eye detect. So most of the time it's just on wide area, and I'll just hit that to get the eye focus going, and that's just the way that I'm using it most of the time. If it is incredibly challenging light, like if it was ridiculously backlit or something like that, it would have to be very bad though. I would then go into the settings and I'd just change it from wide area to flexible spot, M, and that's what I'd use for that. But most of the time I'm just using wide area and trusting the camera to give me what I want. And it really does work 99% of the time, so I don't have to take it off that very much at all. And Jim said, do you have mistletoe? You can hold it over Susie for a moment. No, I haven't got any mistletoe. It's the wrong time of year. I know it does still flower here, I think, at this time of year. I'm not sure. But no, I haven't got any mistletoe, Jim. All right, guys, any last questions before we call it a day? Otherwise, I'm going to head off and have a couple of beers, actually. It is New Year's Eve, remember, here. I'm going to go and get a Guinness. Kerry said Happy New Year to everyone at the beginning, so if you haven't seen that, you came in later. If you watch it again, you'll see Kerry wish everyone a Happy New Year at the beginning with a couple of sparklers. Please, if you can, give me a thumbs up. I'd love more people on board. And I just wanted to say Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you have a really safe night tonight, and may all the things you wish come true next year for you. And you know, obviously, I'll see you next year. This will be my last live YouTube for the year. I can say that. So yeah, I really want to wish you a Happy New Year, guys. And probably that's all for now. So I'll see you all in the next video. Just let me answer this for David. Thank you. The reason I'm asking is I was planning on buying the Sony A9 for an upcoming event. Yeah, David, I just leave it on wide area and just put fast glass on it, and you won't have an issue. I will, Jared, I will have a Guinness. I'm going to be having a big pint, or maybe a couple of pints of that this afternoon, so I can't wait. Joe said, I wish Sony would release the a7RIII. It'll happen. You've just got to keep waiting, and then it's just Happy New Year. All right, guys, please join my Facebook group too, Photography and Videography School. Make sure you join that, because it's now up to around about 380 people or something. It's really growing, and it's a great place where all of you can share stuff as well. So if the waterfall's still there, that's annoying the crap out of me. All right, guys, I'll see you all for the next live. Bye for now.